We acknowledge that we are on the traditional land of the Anishinaabe peoples. We wish to recognize the long history of Indigenous peoples in Canada and show our respect to them today. We recognize their stewardship of the land. May we all live with respect on this land and live in peace and friendship. Tonight's meeting is being live streamed live on the Municipality of North Perth's YouTube channel and will be available after the meeting as an archive video. I just got the thumbs up that things are well on YouTube from Colton. Thank you, Colton. Anyone who is invited to speak will be recorded and their voice, image, and comments will form part of the live stream. The chair and/or clerk have the discretion and authority at any time to direct the termination or interruption of live streaming. Such direction will only be given in exceptional circumstances where deemed necessary. Circumstances may include instances where the content of the debate is considered misleading, defamatory, or potentially inappropriate to be published. Thank you. Welcome to those joining us via the YouTube channel. Welcome to councillors, staff, and delegations who will participate in this meeting. At this time, I invite your decorum over the course of the coming meeting. I advise that I have attendance regrets from Councillor Johnson, who is busy like many farmers in our community bringing in corn harvest. So he plans to join us later this evening. Let us move to item 3, disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. I have noted one. We'll invite Councillor Behrens to speak, please. Councillor Behrens.
Thank you, Chair Rothwell. Just in the event that there is a potential conflict of interest, if we get into much discussion, and I believe I have the right numbers at 7.9.2, and then the confirmatory 13.1. If we discuss in detail the North Perth Spinrite Child and Family Center and programming, I will declare a conflict. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Behrens. Is there any other councillor that wishes to declare? I turn to Councillor Anstead, please.
Thank you, Chair Rothwell. Good evening. I am in the same situation as Councillor Behrens. If we get into certain discussions regarding the daycare and programs, item 7.9.2, I will be declaring a conflict of pecuniary interest as well, as my son attends St. Mary's Daycare. And then also, in addition to that, item 13.1, the confirmatory bylaw. But I will make that decision at that time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Anstead. Any other councillors wish to make declaration at this time? As noted, if we do find ourselves in a situation where a member of council wishes to declare pecuniary interest, we can certainly do so at that time. Thank you. Moving to item 4, to approve or amend the agenda. Are there any modifications to the agenda, Pat? There's no modifications proposed to the agenda. So I'll just one moment, please. The rookie chairperson has some additional comments he should read here. Because this is a point that would be very important. To explain our virtual processes, I'll be trying to seek consent from the various councillors as movers and seconders of the various resolutions and bylaws that will be put before us this evening. I will do this alphabetically. Should a councillor not wish to respond to the request, they may say so, and I'll move on to the next name on the alphabetical list. Regarding speaking to our businesses, councillors tonight will identify themselves through our conference technologies chat function. The clerk is assisting me tonight in maintaining the speaking order from that source. Councillors are allowed on their turn to deliver a primary question or comment and may make one supplemental. We will follow speaking order carefully, and any councillor wishing to have a second say will have to indicate again and go to the bottom of the list. This is a normal process consistent with Robert's Rules of Order. Just hold for 1 second. Okay, fair enough. One of our councillors is asking for some IT assistance. So thanks, Pat, for doing that. Councillors are reminded that if I believe you are not audible, I will call on you. You do not need to ask if you can be heard. I will let you know if we cannot hear you. Councillors are further asked to maintain a mute state in the web conference technology until such time as I've called upon you for a verbal reaction. Should any of our votes not show up in eScribe, I'll call on you when things seem stalled to register a manual vote. At that time, take yourself off mute, answer yes or no on the motion, and then return to mute. Thank you. Now, regarding item 4 on our agenda, I have a motion before me for the adoption of the agenda for tonight's meeting. I'll call on Councillor Andreessen. Would you move that the agenda for tonight's meeting be approved?
Good evening, Chair Rothwell. Yes, I'm happy to approve the agenda. I make that motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Andreessen. Councillor Anstec, will you second the motion?
Yes, I would second that motion. Thank you.
Any discussion? If you wish to participate in the discussion, councillors, please so indicate in the chat window. And I presume we haven't got any desires to speak there, Clerk Beerfels. Thank you. Let's have the vote, please.
I'm in favor. My vote didn't show up.
Okay. Okay, so we have some councillors that are late attending as well. So on the basis of that information, we'll declare that motion carried. Thank you. So the next resolution that we have or item is the consent agenda. This is item 5. So specifically, it's section 5.1, the North Perth Special Council meeting, October 6th, 2021, our budget visioning session minutes. May I have a motion to accept those minutes? We will move forward with Councillor Behrens, please. Would you make that motion?
Yes, I would make that motion. Thank you.
All right. And I'm just looking, Councillor Duncan, Councillor Richardson, would you second that motion, please?
I'll second that motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any comments to be made? Just make yourself known in the chat function. If not, we'll just taking care of a couple things here. We'll call for the vote then, please, Clerk Beerfels. I think we're all there. So on that basis, we'll declare that motion carried. Thank you. Moving right along now, we have item 6, which is our budget vision comments and updates. So now we'll move forward for some conversation about those comments and update. And I'll call on CAO Chris Snell and other appropriate staff for comments in response to the budget vision comments and update. And councillors, you will recall or notice in your agenda package that certainly the minutes are there, but also in particular the notes which our clerk Pat Burfels did take, and you'll see the 5 different areas in which the general comments were made under planning and growth, roads, services, amenities, community well-being and safety, and municipal operations. And then you'll see the next section, which we'll get to, which is the budget visioning suggestions. So you'll see the notes that Clerk Burfels took during that time, as well as comments that have been submitted by staff. So without further ado, CAO Snell, could you please provide comments and then direct if there's other staff you wish to include? Thanks very much, Chris.
Thank you, Chairperson Rothwell. So based on the notes, as mentioned by Chairperson Rothwell, that the clerk took from the meeting, we did then basically lay out sort of a comments or an action plan based on all the issues brought forward under the various categories. So basically laid out just a brief comment of where those projects were heading, or whether they're going to be part of the proposals being brought forward in upcoming future budget discussions. Pat, if you could just, I think, move to page 2. There was just a couple, I think, that we were just seeking further clarification on, and those were the 2 items that were highlighted, and just really in preparing for tonight's meeting, we're looking for seeking further clarification on those 2 comments. And I don't, certainly Becky has anything to add to this, because she was certainly instrumental in helping put this document together.
We'll call on Becky Belfour. Becky, can you join us? I know she has some additional comments to add, because we did have our budget committee meeting earlier this week, and I think she certainly can provide some additional comments. We'll turn it over to Becky, please.
Good evening, everyone. Through you, Chair Rothwell, the continuance of operations at a reputable standard, that was related to the bylaw enforcement, and just continuing with the program that we had been in place previously with the 1 full-time part-time staff, I believe is what it was. And I believe that might have been Mayor Todd who brought that forward. Just wanted to make sure clarification on what they would like us to move forward with, as well as under the municipal operations, the allocations of funds to reserves. And I believe that was Neil Antet that had brought that one forward. So just again, some clarification on those 2 items, just so we can ensure that they are part of the new budget's package.
Thanks very much, Becky. Just in turn, perhaps Mayor Todd, would you like to just confirm discussion that you had with Becky earlier, and we just want to make sure that the comments captured did address the concern that you raised at the budget visioning session? Mayor Todd, please.
Thank you, Chair Rothwell. Yes, I think that my intent primarily was to offer my suggestion in terms of our vision that we continue to maintain a robust bylaw enforcement department group. Certainly it's something that I hear often about from our community, and so I want to make sure that that continues to be reliable and timely, and so that was largely the nature of that. But certainly you can also look at the comment, and it speaks broadly to our times, right? We've faced a lot of challenges as a consequence of COVID, as has every organization. And obviously we have a strong history of delivering quality services in our community that are valued. So I certainly would encourage that to be interpreted both narrowly and broadly, that you know, we need to continue to provide that friendly, effective service across the statutory and some of the elective things that council has selected over the years.
Thank you very much, Mayor Todd. Can we ask Councillor Anstead, I believe, had raised the question with respect to reserves. Councillor Anstead, would you care to just offer any additional comments further to the discussion you had with our Deputy Treasurer, Becky Balfour? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Chair Rothwell. Yes, through you. And I did have a chance to speak with Becky yesterday via phone call. And my comments regarding reserves, I think I was relatively brief in them in the visioning session. However, my goal with the reserves point that I was trying to make was that, again, when we're talking about our 3-5-year plans, looking at operating and capital plans as well, long-term planning, I think it's good business practice for us to set money into reserves so that we can use them on major projects in the future. And as of recently, I mean, we had the council meeting on Monday night that everyone was there, the special meeting regarding our human resources issues that we're facing. And I think it would be very prudent for us to set some funds aside for reserves, as we know that there are going to be issues. There are issues now, and we know that there are going to be issues in the future in terms of retaining staff and compensation levels and those sorts of things. So again, my comments were simply to ensure that we are putting some funds away in our 3 and 5 year plans. Again, not only to get us through things such as COVID, but also to have us in a good place for when we do want to have long-term projects that we're working on, that we can fund those appropriately with funds that we've set aside now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Anstead. I can just turn back to CAO Snell. Chris, are there any additional comments that you'd like to make at this time, or any other staff that you call on?
At this time, I don't think there's any additional clarification required unless council has further input on the comments that were presented from the management team and Becky.
All right, thanks very much, CEO Snell. I'll just call on council. If there are specific items that you wish to question or have comments about, could you please use our chat function? And we will go through those questions as they arise. I'll just give everyone a moment here, and we'll just pay attention to our chat function. We'll just give everyone a minute here. All right, not seeing any. We will move forward then. I don't believe there's any motion required for that, correct? All right, so council, this will be a basis of further discussion and conversation throughout the budget, I'm sure. But just note that we appreciate the work of staff to, certainly our clerk, to outline our comments from the budget visiting session, but also of staff across the organization that did provide their comments. So I appreciate that. All right, so now is the time when we are moving forward into item number 7 on our agenda. And tonight we are addressing a special theme, and that is the operating budgets. And this is one of the most important initiatives that this council undertakes annually. I will again call on CAO Snell for comments, and then we will move through the operating budget presentations as outlined on the agenda. And you'll see it's a fairly significant item or section, 10 different sections in which we are going to hear presentations from each of the different departments. If there are questions that do arise during the presentation, I ask that councillors use the chat function to signify their desire to ask questions, but all the questions will be addressed at the end of the specific budget presentation prior to moving on to the next department presentation. So again, as I say, you'll note that we have 10 different presentations that we'll be receiving this evening. Our intent, as discussed with staff, is that we will get through them all. And I note it's 20 after 7, and we will take some time during this next period, I'm sure, to stretch and so on. But without further ado, we'll move to item 7.1. The listable BIA presentation, and we welcome Scott Patterson, chair of the listable BIA, and I know he's on screen, so Without further ado, Scott Patterson, welcome, and we look forward to your presentation.
Good evening, Chair Rothwell, members of council. Thank you for having me this evening. And as noted, I am wearing my Listowel BIA chair hat this evening for you. We have a very brief presentation just to outline some of the things we've done in 2021 and to speak about our 2022 budget for council's consideration. Next slide, please. So in 2021, we naturally continued to build on our Discover Listowel brand and market Listowel as a place to shop, dine, and discover. And this was done through the execution of our 2021 marketing plan. We continue with our BIA events that happen throughout the year. We do our seasonal promotions and beautification projects. Our chairperson, or our coordinator, Lisa Schaefer, has done a Listowel Loves Local Pledge program. We've done our community event support, where we partner, attend, and sponsor other events held by other community groups. And we've done our COVID-19 business recovery support, and that's done through our newsletter and through Ms. Schaefer assisting businesses where she can with various items. We also held our AGM meeting in 2021. For the holiday season of 2021, we're having our decorating contest for businesses. We're also having our decorating contest for residents, which went over very well last year. We're trying something new with a winter bench selfie contest. Of course, we're doing our town decorations and the banners. We have a Deck the Halls town open house, and we're continuing with our marketing through radio, print, websites, and social media. Next slide, please. So as far as our budget for 2022, we are requesting a total budget of $119,300. And I just want to make very clear that this is the same budget that was requested and authorized for 2021. We are not asking for an increase, as our board felt that the impact of COVID-19 has had a significant impact on our businesses, and it didn't seem like an appropriate time naturally to ask for an increased budget or an increased contribution. If that budget is approved, it would fund our events. Again, that we coordinate ourselves, we participate in support that happens. It would support our ongoing marketing and promotion through local media, newsprint, radio, social media, and the web. Of course, it contributes to our summer beautification, the downtown flowers, and the other efforts that we put forward. And it will go towards our holiday decoration, maintenance, and add-ons, which is an ongoing effort that Ms. Schaefer does diligently every year. And it also looks after our part-time coordinator, that being Ms. Schaefer, at 24 hours a week, and includes her wages, benefits, and pension. Next slide, please. It also goes towards the training for the coordinator and our board members. It covers our meeting expenses, covers software and memberships, sponsorships of various events that we promote in Listowel, covers our audit fees and municipal staff support, internal transfers and other items, and also covers general office supplies and cell phones, etc. Our focus for 2022 is to continue with the Discover Listowel and Market Listowel place to shop, dine, and discover, and that will continue. Again, we'll continue with our BIA events, our seasonal promotions, the beautification, do the community event support where we can, and Ms. Schaefer and our board will help with the COVID-19 recovery and business support efforts as much as we can as well. We're also looking at grant applications, which is ongoing, and we're hoping that we can get some monies through those efforts to look at local improvements and other things that we can continue to do. I would note that given all that's going on in the world, 2021 was an actual very good year for the BIA. We feel we got a lot accomplished this year, and we're looking forward to next year. Ms. Schaefer continues to do an excellent job for us, and we're very happy that she devotes as much time as she does to our efforts. And I'm also pleased to advise that we've had an uptake in those willing to be board members this year. We've had some new board members, which is great for me as the chair to have some support. And they're very active and help as much as they can, considering their other business activities and things. So I believe that wraps up my presentation. Again, we're just asking for the same budget that was approved for last year. I'm available to answer any questions, and I believe Ms. Schaefer is on as well. And naturally, she knows more about what we do than I do. So if there's any questions or concerns, we can try and address those for you this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Scott. I'm turning to council now. Are there specific questions that you would like to raise on this budget presentation, please? We're just paying attention to the chat feature. Councillor Andreessen, please.
Thank you very much. Through you, Chair Rothwell. Thank you, Scott. We appreciate you representing the BIA and your work as a chair as well. When I took a look at the budget, I just noticed that for 2022, there wasn't money allocated for Win This Space. I'm assuming then that that wouldn't be a program that you'd be moving forward with. I was just curious. Thank you.
Through you, Chair Rothwell. Actually, Ms. Schaefer advised me today that we're fortunate enough to only have, well, next to no vacancies in our downtown core. We have 2 spaces that I'm aware of that may not be prime locations for rent or that are available. And as such, we're looking at options for Win This Space. It was pushed back, it was delayed, and we're currently working with our partners on that, being Libro naturally as the primary sponsor, about what to do with those funds. Nothing has been decided as of yet, so I don't want to divulge too much on that. But we're weighing whether Win This Space is actually viable or not, considering we may not have any spaces that are available. So I would just ask council to stay tuned. If we feel it's viable, we will run it. But we're hoping to potentially do other things that will be just as successful and benefit the BIA.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Councillor Andreessen. Just a follow-up from there through to you, Scott. You mentioned Libro specifically as being one of the sponsors for that. Is there a specific dollar amount that they have sponsored for that specific Win This Space program?
If I could ask Lisa, can you jump in for a second? I believe she's on here.
Sure, I sure can. Hi, everyone. Libro gave us $7,700. That's currently in our reserves, just waiting to be used. The $3,000 that was in the budget last year was just money we were going to use. We are working with them to see if it's possible to keep that money for a different project. But again, we're still in stages with that. There was a couple other sponsors as well. Once we understand what's going on with Libro, then we will reach out to them. So there's about $11,000 in our reserves that was earmarked from sponsors for Win This Space.
Thank you very much for that information. I appreciate that, and we'll stay tuned. Councillor, is there any other questions for the BIA budget presentation? I'm just going to give everyone a moment here. We're not seeing anything here, so I will thank both of you for the presentation, and we look forward to further good news and information from the BIA. Our regards to you and the members of the BIA. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
On the basis of our agenda, we're going to move to item 7.2, General Administration. So I'll call on our CAO, Chris Snell, please, to give that presentation, item 7.2.
Thank you again, Chair Rothwell. Good evening, Council. I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank all the staff, the management team, and in particular, Fran and Becky, Chair Rothwell and Vice Chair Andreessen for putting together this year's budget. As Chair Rothwell said, this is certainly one of the most important documents that we work on annually. It guides us throughout the year in both our operations and our projects, and it's certainly vital to keeping the municipality fiscally sustainable and guiding us in our operations. I'm not going to read through the entire general administration's overview. just a couple things I would like to highlight on. Of course, as everyone knows, 2021 was far from normal, just due to COVID, and certainly we continue to deal with all the pressures that our municipality has been experiencing, like growth and some of the social issues that have come with growth. But certainly COVID still had an impact on our operations in 2021. One of the biggest changes we made in the 2022 operating budgets across the board was we created the entire budget using job rate, or the top job wage of each position. Now, this doesn't mean that every staff person is getting paid the top job rate, but this is considered a good practice in the sector. It does smooth out sort of fluctuations in the wage portions of the budgets. Also, there was some ease of use for our new budget software by adopting this new methodology. For the most part, it didn't have significant impacts on our budget. However, just due to childcare being basically a break-even budget, and the budget's been so close, we are phasing this in with the childcare programming. Next, I'd just like to make a couple comments about administration. It certainly includes Council's commitment to the PC Connect, as well as from Monday night, all the administration or the HR plan has been included in the 2022 operating budget. So again, we have our OMPF contribution, which is up a little bit. Economic development, certainly it's a significant percentage increase when you look at the overall budget increase. However, we are planning on replacing the position for the facade improvement program. Now we're expanding on that, and we're not necessarily just limiting to that, but we are basically backfilling that position. That position was funded in 2021 through a RED grant that is no longer available. And the position was vacated about a month before the contract was to end. But there is a tremendous amount of work with the facade program, as well as other initiatives such as affordable housing and other projects Kim's working on that we'd like to dedicate some resources to. So that is included in the 2022 economic development budget, and is the major reason why it is up so much. And Police Services Board is basically more or less flat. It actually is a small decrease in the per household cost, but as we all know, there are more households, so the budget is basically flat or down a little bit going up a little bit going into 2022 on a per month cost. That's really the end of my comments. Certainly, I'm willing to answer any questions council may have.
Thanks very much, CAO Snell. I turn to council. Are there specific questions that you have? Please use the chat function. And just while we're waiting for any comments, CAO Snell, could you just talk a little bit more about the last paragraph there on the admin presentation about the Police Services Board with the Community Safety and Policing Act and the dissolution of the Police Services Board? I'm sure we're going to hear more about that, but is there any budgetary impact for the fact that we won't have a Police Services Board any longer?
The Police Services Board budget isn't that significant overall, and we don't really have necessarily how the new Police Services Board will be funded. So basically, going forward, I put in the budget like we'd be operating the Police Services Board as normal through 2022. There are lots of rumors out there that the giving of royal assent of the act is not going to come as soon as was promised. But also we're still waiting on a lot of the details of how the new Police Services Board will be funded, what kind of model that will be needed to cover our costs or our proportionate costs for that board. And as well, I think even if we have some cost reduction in paying police service board members, there's still some of that money under that heading has always gone towards what we call crime prevention and education. And so, for example, at the last police services board, there was a fridge magnet approved that we will be providing all households, hopefully in 2022, some information about how to contact the OPP, as well as we've also been assisting Public Works to help pay for some of the radar speed signs around town. So I would hope that council would see fit that some of those programs will continue even under the new police services board model.
Thanks very much, CEO Snell. Any other questions from council? I'm not seeing any. So thank you very much, CEO Snell and staff, for that presentation. Next, we're item 7.3, Clerk and Building Department. So we'll call on our clerk, Pat Burfels, and I'm thinking of our mayor. Is there something that I need to make sure that we don't have a problem?
Good evening, Council. Similar to our CAO, I'm not going to read my report for you this evening. However, there are a couple of things that I would like to highlight. Of course, in the Clerk's Department, the highlight of 2022 will be the preparation and the implementation of a successful municipal election. In regards to the Canine Control Services, unfortunately, due to the pandemic, we still have been unable to develop the program we were hoping for when we began our services with the Stratford Perth Humane Society. But with that, again, things have changed. And for instance, yesterday, using social media and good neighbors in North Perth, we were able to find the way home for a lost dog. Things have changed in regards to how this has been done in the past. I do also want to note under planning that this is not a conclusive report for 2021. Since completing my report for tonight, we have had 2 additional zoning bylaw amendments, 1 minor variance, as well as another application for a part lot control. These numbers could also change before the year ends. Similar to that, the statistics in the numbers that I prepared for you tonight in regards to bylaw enforcement is also going to change greatly, as at this time our bylaw enforcement officer is not as busy outside, that she's able to do a lot of input, and we're gathering all those statistics as well. I think another thing to note there, and this follows up a comment earlier from Mayor Kasenberg, that we certainly are looking at the bylaw enforcement department and how we think things should run based on the resignation from one of our officers. We are just taking this time at this during the fall to reevaluate and decide for 2022 what the bylaw enforcement officer department should look like. And then going back to planning, based on our new agreement with Perth County, we certainly have a difference in the planning budget for 2022. You will note we're certainly not going to bring in the amount of dollars we've based our budget on in the past. However, we certainly don't have the monies to pay out for a contract for a planner. This is my report for tonight on behalf of the clerk's bylaw and building departments, and I'd be happy to entertain any questions.
Thanks very much, Pat, for the presentation. I'm going to call on council. If there's any questions, please do so in the chat. I'll just give everyone just a moment. I'm not noting any comments coming forward. So at this time, Pat, are we going to have Chief Beneficial Podimits as well on the presentation?
Make comment again.
Yeah.
In regards to the building department, Ed has prepared for you a very short synopsis on the building department in the past year and looking forward to 2022. I'm not sure that I have anything more to add at this time, but be willing to answer any of your questions or find the details for you.
Thank you, Clerk Perfels, and thanks to Building Department staff and Ed Podowitz as Chief Official. Any questions on the building, Chief Building Official or Zoning Administrator side from Council? I'm not seeing any comments there, so we'll close that section and move forward with item 7.4. which is the Finance and IT Department. We'll call on our Director of Finance and Treasurer, Francis Hale, please.
Good evening, Chair Rothwell, members of Council. My report this evening is outlining a lot of change for the Finance and IT Departments. Both have experienced significant changes in staff and in software applications within our department and corporately as well. As you know, our IT gentlemen have been very busy for the past 19 months, and we foresee that that will be the case moving forward for the corporation as we add level of service not only to our staff but to our community as well. The changes supported by Council have provided us with the opportunity to be more effective, managing all the significant changes and workload that we've been experiencing through the growth within the municipality. The details of the changes have been outlined within my report, and I'd be happy to address any questions that you have or need more detail. In 2022, the Municipal Property Assessment Corporation will not be providing a reassessment again for the new role, as Council is very much aware. This does give us, though, the opportunity to calculate the real impact of growth that the assessed values are having on our community, and gives us a real good idea. We're anticipating the role to be returned in a week or so we'll be able to give an update on what the bottom line property tax percentage impact will be. Of course, the numbers are relating as far as the levy goes at 4.7, but once we apply the growth element, it certainly will have a different impact, and Becky will go over some more detail with you on that. So I'd be happy to answer or address any questions that I can for you this evening.
Thank you for your presentation, Francis. I'm turning to Council. Are there any questions of our Treasurer, please? I'm not seeing any questions from members of Council. So Francis, you're getting off easy there, but I assure you I'm sure will be questions as we move forward into the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item 7.5, North Perth Library Services. So our CEO, Ellen Whalen, please. Ellen.
Thank you. Good evening, Council and Chair Rothwell. So I just have a short report for you tonight. 2021 was kind of a strange year for the library, with COVID implications continuing into the spring, where we were continuing curbside service, and we were able to welcome patrons back into the building. So our year was a bit odd this year. One thing I'd like to point out is that we were helping the community get those passport vaccination proofs. And as of this writing the report, which was about mid-November, we did do 2,600 for our community. It's a service that they continue to appreciate. Our goal for 2022 is that we get a little bit more back to normal, and we've reflected our budget on some of our 2019 numbers, but still with the implication that we'll probably be affected by some of the COVID restrictions going forward. So just a few notes here. CAO Snell had mentioned that top of the pay grid that's impacting the library as well. And Fran spoke to the computer in her report. The library will be paying full cost per computer this year, where last year it was prorated. Our maintenance costs for our facilities are being transferred to the manager of facilities. And our revenues will be impacted in coming 2022. Throughout COVID, the library has been fine-free to ease that impact on our community. And the library board has passed that we will continue to be fine-free going forward alongside all Perth libraries. And our neighbors, Huron and Wellington, will also be going fine-free. So we're in good company there. One last note is that just the OMPF grant will not be coming to the library this year, and that too will impact revenues. But if there's any questions, I'd be happy to at least try to answer them.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Ellen. I'm looking if there's any questions from our members of council. Just use the chat function. While we're waiting, I just want to show, well, you can't see it, but anyways, this is what the vaccine passport looks like. And thanks to our staff at our library, I was able to get mine done. It fits very nicely and stays clean and dry because there's a really nice package. So thanks to our staff at the library for providing that service. And it is free and it doesn't take very long at all. So if you have not got it, I sound like a salesman, but anyways, I encourage you to go in and see our wonderful staff at the libraries, and I'm sure they'd be able to help you as well. Thank you very much, Alan. I'm not seeing any other comments. Are you, Clerk Berfuss? So without further ado, thank you very much, Alan, and keep up the good work. And fine free, my goodness, everyone should be going through their house and making sure they haven't got any things that haven't gone back to the library. So thanks very much, Alan. From the library, now we go to fire services and our new fire chief, Janny Pape. Janny, welcome. The floor is yours to present the fire services budget, please. Janny.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair Rothwell and members of council. Following suit with my colleagues, I won't read my entire report. I will just give you some of the highlights this evening. As you know, the North Perth Fire Department experienced significant administrative changes this past year. Sarah Jameson has gone and taken a secondment at the town office, and our longstanding fire chief retired and I was appointed. Public education continues to be restricted due to COVID protocols that are in place. We continue to look for opportunities on virtual platforms. Fire prevention inspections have continued this year, up significantly from last year. We had 181 fire safety inspections performed this past year. Most of those are in residential occupancies, and all of our registered vulnerable occupancies were inspected and fire drills completed in compliance with Ontario Regulation 36413. Our call volume is roughly the same as last year, with our personnel responding to approximately 226 alarms as of today, but our year end is not here yet. And that's roughly the same as last year. We've had 5 new recruits, 4 in the Listowel station, 1 in the Atwood station, and now just recently 1 in our Moncton station late this fall. In-person training and education opportunities continue to be restricted due to COVID protocols, and that has resulted in reduced conference training, meeting, and travel expenditures this past year. We did, however, have a number of participants complete training. Fire apparatus driver and operator, or also known as pump ops training, has been conducted the last 2 weekends. In our Listowel station, we had 14 participants, And we've had 3 participants complete the fire and life safety educator training. Livestock truck rollover training will be online, and we've actually had a few more join that roster, so we'll have 14 taking that. As you know, emergency dispatching will be transitioned from Stratford Fire to Owen Sound Police Services effective January 5th. And we continue to work with representatives of Owen Sound Police Services to ensure a seamless transition. Continues to be a challenge to procure fire equipment due to ongoing global supply chain challenges. However, we did have 3 fire apparatus delivered this past year, a new pumper for both the Moncton and Atwood stations and a new tanker in our Listowel station. The proposed 2022 budget does have some financial increases that I just want to highlight for you this evening. Rent costs for the Listowel, Atwood and Moncton Fire Station, as well as the North Perth Fire Department training facility, have been introduced to reflect new facility model, and that's added to our administrative budget. The increased charges for dispatching services, we are increasing our level of service. This means that we will not need to have a firefighter at our dispatch room at our stations when an emergency call comes in, so we will be able to send more of our personnel out on the call. We'll also be compliant with new NG 911 requirements. I have included $5,000 for recruitment and retention strategies. We're looking at some different opportunities and trying to come up with a strategy to entice firefighters to join us as it is a challenge, and to get them to stay with us. We have in the proposed budget included cost of living increases to per diems, hourly wages, and annual stipends. Equipment and apparatus repair and maintenance costs, I've increased those by 25%, in part due to the ongoing supply chain challenges. And also, I do need to acknowledge Chief Smith, as we all know, was very mechanically inclined, and I am not. So those won't be done. There won't be as many in-house repairs possible. Also, there are increased depreciation costs that can be attributed to the purchase of 3 brand new apparatus. That did have a significant impact. And the proposed budget includes an increase to the training and education portion of our budget for fire personnel. We are finding we're going to have to do some catch up because we haven't been able to do in-person training. So for instance, the first responder training is going to be necessary for a larger number of people than usual this coming year. I also do want to make note of a data entry error on my part, whereby I allocated $400 rather than $4,000 for workers' compensation in the Moncton station. I've spoken with Becky about making this adjustment for the next version of the 2022 operating budget. I'm open for your questions. And I apologize, my camera's not on. There it is there.
I think you're on mute.
Yeah.
Always important as the chair to have your microphone on. Thanks very much, Chair Chief Pape, for your comments in the presentation. I appreciate that. We have a question from Councillor Andreessen. Go ahead, Councillor Andreessen.
Actually, I didn't have a question that was previous to this, but just want to thank Chief Pape for taking on her duties, and we look forward to working with her in the future. Thank you.
Likewise.
Councillor Andreessen, I just caught your comment there. Your comment didn't come in onto my screen until just a moment ago, but maybe there's a slight delay between Wallace and now. So maybe at the end we can just make note of that before we slip on. Okay, Councillor Andreessen, I don't want to forget that. We will move to Councillor Anstead has a question, please. Councillor Anstead, go ahead.
Thanks, Chair Rothwell, through you, and thanks very much, Chief Pape, for your report. Just a question I did have, obviously with the increased price of fuel, I noticed that it's obviously in there, but I'm just concerned, are you expecting a large increase in that department, or what's your outlook on that? Thank you.
through you, Chair Rothwell, and to Councillor Anstett, I did not include a large increase for that. I added the 1.46 across the board at this point. It's difficult for us because we don't always know how many calls we're going to have and how long those calls are going to run. And so it's very difficult to predict that. If we have the same number of calls, we're always hoping for a reduction in calls, and more of our calls are becoming medical and motor vehicle collision responses. So those are shorter in duration. When we really get into fuel costs, it is at a structure fire, and we are experiencing fewer of those as a municipality. So there was not a large increase for fuel this year.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Anstett. Any further questions from council? Just while we're waiting, Chief Pape, can you, your last comment about the training and so on, as a result of the change of the province regarding the fire college and so on, is that the, in addition to the fact that we haven't been training as much in person, is that an additional expense that you've allocated for in the budget, please?
It is. We just this past weekend, actually, the pump ops training that we had, we are bringing in instructors from a reputable, that's the other piece, is we have to find a reputable third party to provide this type of training that normally would have been a $65 registration fee. We're now, for that course, it was about $480, I think, per participant. So it is not insignificant. We have taken a look at the courses that we know we need to look at next year, and we've looked out to those third-party providers to get pricing. So that has been incorporated into the budget.
Thanks very much, Chief Pape, and certainly will be a challenge, and I'm sure you and your staff will work hard to ensure our firefighters are trained as best as possible. I appreciate your effort. I'm seeing no additional questions from council, so Chief Pape, thanks very much for your budget presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Council, I note we're not even at 8 o'clock, and lo and behold, we're at item 7.7, road, stormwater, and drainage, and we'll call on our Manager of Operations, Lyndon Couch. Lyndon, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you. Just to give a brief overview from the notes last year, I'll read through them as they are listed. Roads, again, you're going to see this repeated through the accounts, simply that they're normal operations. There weren't many changes. COVID did not impact operations in terms of, our activities or staffing, although we did have some staff turnover and some shortages. The programs actually saw fewer complaints for road maintenance, especially with the gravel and dust programs. And with winter control, we saw a typical winter, and typical charge outs in those accounts, or actually undercharging in some of the accounts based on the amount of events that we had so far in this year. For 2022, under the roads account, the GIS technician is listed under salaries, so you'll see a change in that area. Lots to do with GIS improvement and open data in the upcoming year, and that's listed as a salary increase. We've got budgeting changes that are throughout actually many departments in terms of facility, switching over to a centralized facility, and out at the public works accounts, you'll see those as in and out changes with facility management. There's an increase in basically dust control, gravel, for example, as well as our tree maintenance accounts, as we're trying to remove a lot of the dead ash from the road allowances. That's going to be a multi-year program, so you can see slight increases in areas like that as we move through the operational budgets. For stormwater, regular system maintenance, again, we're doing a lot of what we would call rear yard or rear yard system upgrades, and you'll see that in the catch basin and storm accounts as changes, not many increases, but a fair bit of maintenance in these small systems that connect to the main roadway systems, and we've been working through those. So you'll see increases in hired equipment costs, as well as our own time in some of those areas, but not significant ones. Drainage, status quo again, very busy with over 30 capital projects and several maintenance programs. The budgets are being sustained in that area, as well as equipment, and we're looking forward to the asset management and maintenance management systems in 2022 kicking in and probably doing a detailed review that we've been waiting on for equipment, looking at rate structure and charge outs, but no changes so much in the actual budget layout. A final comment, and I've already mentioned it, was the GIS program, looking at basically upgrading all of our data, including the new streets and the new as-built information into our systems, and having a more accurate GIS road network log and layers brought forward through the year. So I think that pretty much covers the changes. In general, I'll make points out that I'll make some points regarding grants. Grants are up, the OMPF grants are up, and you'll see that reflected in storm as well as roads. One editorial comment I have to make in the transition of the Excel spreadsheets under account 013540, there's a listing for materials at 37,000. It should have read 5,000, and that'll be down $30,000 in sidewalk snow plowing. So that account looked like it had a significant increase, although we're adding 10% more sidewalks in the listable area, or about 8%. That number will go down 32,000, and I'll clarify that with Becky, but that's just for your information for tonight. I'm open to any questions regarding any of the accounts.
Thanks very much, Lyndon. Turning to council, are there questions that you have? Just looking at the chat function there. Lyndon, I just want to have you just slip back to the equipment operations repair cost. Are there any additional equipment that you're looking at? I guess that's more into the capital, is it, as opposed to the operations, correct? This is simply about maintenance of existing equipment, correct?
Yes, just the running of that equipment and the maintaining of it. That's actually something I was working on and finalizing today for later this week.
Thank you very much. Council, any further questions for Lyndon? Again, this is a significant part of our budget. Our public works are crucial for all of our municipal operations, and we appreciate the work of Lyndon and all of the staff associated with public works, and certainly every department as well. But any further questions? I'm not seeing any. So thanks very much, Lyndon, for your presentation. Item 7.8, we'll call on our Manager of Environmental Services, Mark Hackett, please. Mark, welcome.
Thank you, Chair Rothwell and Council. I'll be brief as well. Looking at the effect of growth on North Perth, you can see that through the addition of 153 new residential water customers, 159 residential sanitary sewer customers, and 3 each commercial and water and sanitary customers. We've had over 933 locate requests, and that was up until probably the end of October. So we over 1,000 by the end of the year. I do have to make a note here. I noticed in here, I put that the water and sewer rates have been amended. They have not been amended as of yet. At the time of writing this, I was hoping to have that done already, but I'm bringing that to council very soon. Overall, though, revenues and expenses are pretty close to what were expected. The revenues are, by the end of the year, will be slightly elevated, simply again in relation to growth, with more residents paying for their rates. That you'll see that at the end of the year as well. So I've included for both water. Also, the 2022 budget includes the addition of the utility supervisor position that was approved by council. We're hoping to have that in place early in the new year. I've included some activities that have taken place in both the water and the wastewater systems. It's been a very busy year, but we've got a lot of things done, and we have I've also listed for each of them some plans for the upcoming year, so I won't go through all of those. Looking at the solid waste side of things, it was again a successful year in 2021. We're expecting our landfill tipping fees to be up approximately 30,000 by the end of the year. We've added 123 new waste bins and 153 new recycling bins. And again, that illustrates the growth in the municipality. Expenses are pretty well as budgeted. I would note that for 2021, this was the first year under council direction that we moved to a complete user fee based operational budget. And I think it's been quite successful. I think we're going to hit the numbers that we were hoping to hit. Recycling in Ontario continues to change. Since 2019, the tire recycling, batteries, electronics, and the municipal hazardous and special waste programs have all moved to a producer responsibility model. Next up is the Blue Box program, and as council may recall, we're scheduled for 2024 for those changes to take place. Our mattress recycling program is continuing at the landfill. It's been going since April of 2017. And since that time, we're over 4,500 mattresses recycled. And I like to add in there, that's the equivalent of 30 tractor trailer loads. So it's a good visual for council to picture that and look at how much landfill space we're able to conserve. And I think that's an important part. Continuing on with that, we started last year with the styrofoam or EPS, expanded polystyrene recycling at the landfill, and it's been quite successful and well received. And we, again, about 1.59 tractor trailer loads have been diverted in the first year. So that's also a very good positive. And I'd be happy to take any questions. That's basically my report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark, for your presentation. Members of council, any questions to our Manager of Environmental Services? We're not seeing any comments coming in, so without further ado, thanks very much, Mark, for your presentation, and to your staff as well. And certainly that visual that you gave us of the number of tractor trailers is significant in terms of the mattresses, and that's a huge number. Thanks very much for your that presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. So item 7.9, facilities and programs operating. So we'll start 7.9.1, and we'll call on our Manager of Facilities, Jeff Newell, to talk facilities. 7.9.1. Go ahead, Jeff, please.
Good evening, Chair Rothwell and members of council. I have a presentation here explaining the review of 2021 and outlook for 2022 for the facilities department. 2021 was a year of transition for our department as the Rec and Parks department as such was cut into two different departments, being facilities and programs, to offer quality programs and facilities to the residents of North Perth. One of the transitions, again, is I'll mention COVID-19 has had a definite impact on our operation as we respond to the guidelines from the province and Huron-Perth Public Health. We hosted a number of mass vaccination clinics in some of our facilities, like the Steve Kerr facility was turned into a clinic for much of the summer months. Over the last year, the last couple of months, we've seen a loosening of the COVID restrictions, and as such, our numbers are coming back up as far as rentals and usage of our facilities. Although costs remain very much consistent or even increased if you were to look at things like our security personnel that are checking for validation of vaccinations at the door, and our increased cleaning as well. So the costs still remain high, and our revenues have not gone up to the point where we had anticipated. Looking forward to 2022, I would say that the budget has been optimistically created with the notion that the loosening of restrictions will have us back to usage rates similar to 2019. There was a more realistic budget proposed last year because we were in the middle of COVID-19 pandemic. And so the numbers you will see are maybe substantially increased, but that's because it's a more optimistic view, more like 2019 numbers that we should be experiencing. So many of the numbers are reflective of 2019 more so than 2021 when it comes to our budgeted estimates for 2022. You will have heard through both Ellen and Jenny with regards to the new structure of facility and things like our materials, cleaning supplies, hydro, those type of things will be moved over to the facilities department with a rent or a charge out back to the units that are coming into the facilities. Also is in addition to the Parks and Rec typical facilities, we're adding in facilities like the cemeteries and Perth Meadows as well. So this year is going to be a learning experience for all of us when it comes to combining some of these budgets, and it will definitely be a learning experience as we move forward. And finally, we're looking at a new organizational structure for the facilities department, and it will be implemented in a way that will recognize the strengths of our current staff that we have and their expertise, and we'll realign some priorities for them in order to come up with a cohesive team. But with the taking on of the Perth Meadows and cemeteries, there will be a new structure in place coming shortly. And we will learn much from the implementation of this 2022 budget. Tweaks again for 2023. And I am happy to answer any questions that anyone may have with regards to the anticipated 2022 budget.
Thank you, Jeff, for your presentation. I see that we have Councillor Andreessen has a question, please. Go ahead, Councillor Andreessen.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Chair Rothwell. Thank you, Jeff. I realize that this is quite a change for you this round for this budget, as a lot of changes in the organization and with facilities. So it's great to have you at the head of the round there. That's great. I just had a question around cemeteries and perhaps council might engage in some more discussion and debate about this. Last year, we had talked about perhaps moving towards more of a cost recovery model with cemeteries, and perhaps I need to be corrected, but you can help me out with this, Jeff. When I reviewed the paperwork around the budget, I noticed that we weren't really at that model yet. And I'm wondering about perhaps looking at that sooner than later, at more cost recovery around user fees with cemeteries. We have challenged our environment department to do that, and that's gone very, very well. And I'm just wondering if that could be a consideration for 2022 coming up. I appreciate hearing your thoughts there, and perhaps other councillors may want to weigh in as well. Thank you.
Through you, Chair Rothwell. One of the things, if we've done some number crunching, you will see that we've done increases in many areas of 2%. But when it comes to cemeteries, we've done an increase of 5% on our revenues, and that's in a hope of moving towards more self-sufficiency. My understanding is that we are in keeping with the mid-range of many of the neighboring municipalities. But in speaking with Lyndon, we decided that a 5% increase would be reasonable. This goes in cohort with the Bereavement Authority of Ontario, which is also increasing their fees as well for their services. So there will be a 5% plus an increase for the BAO fees.
Councillor Andreessen, I don't see anyone else, so please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. So with a 5% increase, I understand that's an increase. What would you foresee being the time frame to become really cost recovery?
It would be a number of years if we're still going up with a 5% jump. I can't anticipate what that full recovery would be. I mean, one of the things that is happening is with the use of the columbariums, the expenses are not as high for doing burials when you're using the columbariums. So our fees have gone up this year because we've had more internments, and but the cost of doing those is not as great as they were. So we're moving in the right direction. I don't know if I could pick a year that we would be fully cost recovery at this point. I'm not sure. We did do a substantial jump, I believe it was 2 years ago, of 10%. And so we feel this is more in keeping, just going up by 5% this time around.
Thanks for the response. Any further questions from council, please? We're not seeing any additional questions coming in the chat. So Jeff, thank you very much for your presentation on facilities. And again, welcome for your first budget under that department with us as well.
Thank you.
We'll move to item number 7.9.2 on our agenda and invite Amy Gangle, our Manager of Programs. Amy, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair Rothwell and members of council. Yes, similar to Jeff's presentation, just to highlight the program department, I've gone into a little bit more detail to paint a picture of the services that we have been providing. We will be working on our business plan for in the next month for council to be able to see the entire picture, but wanted to kind of give some highlights at this stage. So we've adopted a charter fostering a sense of community through quality programs. Staff and community can resonate with this charter, and it falls under a lot of our actions and our services to meet the community's needs. We've provided some high-level strategies that tie into that charter, and I've provided that high-level picture for you. With regards to children's services, our large focus was we're still in the pandemic. We are providing our child care services. However, we are still following all of our health measures and ensuring the safety of our children and our community. We've highlighted some things. I've added a couple of pictures just to highlight what emergency child care looks like. It is school. So for any who have assisted their children or grandchildren with their homework during remote learning, now picture staff with 26 of them in one room. So just to highlight that. The staff have had smiles on their faces and have engaged with the children to be able to assist them through that, and that's been very, very good help for those families. Highlighting percentage-wise, attendance has been between 75% to 100%, and this is primarily affected with pandemic ups and downs with that. But as we cycle through, we're seeing higher percentages of attendance, and we expect to see similar things for 2022, still going on a positive note. Some ongoing challenges that we've had is our childcare staff shortage, been focusing on that, staff sustainability, reaching out, engaging with staff, getting feedback, and trying to doing some creative advertising for and promotions for positions, and starting to strengthen our staff capacities. So that's one thing that our department has been focusing on. We have, as council is aware, we received council approval for increasing our rates, which will come into effect on May 1st. This, just a reminder for council, this was primarily because January 1st, we're reintroducing our prepayment policy, and we just figured that might be too much of a hit on families. We wanted to do adjustments as we get back to our pre-pandemic policies for payments. Regarding trainings, despite the pandemic, we've been able to provide ongoing training for our staff, most of it completed in virtual format, if not all of it. And we were able to submit a proposal and receive funding for all of our staff to receive mental health first aid, understanding that these frontline workers have been working very hard for the past 18 months with the dedication of the safety of our children and their families, and it's weighed on them. And they still come in with a smile. They still love the children, and we were able. This was their ask, and we were able to provide that service. So that training is underway. First one starts actually tomorrow evening, and we will follow through with additional workshops in the new year. Highlighted some pictures regarding the North Perth Early On Centers and highlighted some programs that we hope to reintroduce in 2022, as well as providing statistics. You'll see that not many of the in-person programs didn't start until July. This was primarily with provincial government direction that we were only permitted to start doing in-person training in the summer. And then aquatic programs, we provided some highlights of some of our numbers for those. We did have COVID-19 protocols in place, so that did restrict some of our numbers, did put a strain on some of our summer staff, but we were able to put some additional support for them to help them through, and the public very much appreciated having that service. Regarding our senior programs, our highlight is the Lonely No More program, going very, very well. As far as the impact that it is having on our individuals, we may not be seeing large numbers as far as participants, but we are seeing the impact one person is having and the connections that they have to members of the community. So for example, for every participant, there's up to 8 community members that were engaged, and we provided a highlight story for that. We're involved with promotions and marketings of our programs, including the Community Connection newsletter. We began the year with a lot more of the pandemic information and resources focus, mental health resources, and near the end of this year, it's converted back to more of community programs and events. So it's nice to see that returning, and lots of other opportunities for marketing and promotions. Highlight statistics for recreation and community programs. Statistically, numbers went very well. The only one that was less than last year was for our young adults, and this is primarily because the schools, we were unable to have community use of the schools, so that limited the number of programs that we could provide, in addition to the restrictions that we had for the pandemic. Our outlook for 2022, we anticipate a busier year, having a bit more normal activities, expanding on those ideas, and being able to offer additional programs for all ages. We will continue to collaborate with our early on recreation facilities, community, and childcare, as well as our other community partners, and available for any questions.
Thank you very much, Amy. Members of council, if you have questions, please use the chat function and we'll get through to those questions. We're not seeing any just yet. It is great to see that you did include some photos, by the way, because many members of council haven't seen the inside, for example, of the early on in Moncton or the Tremaine in the schools on Tremaine Ave or on Benning Street. So I appreciate that sort of glimpse into that. Any other questions for Amy? I'm not seeing any. So Amy, thank you very much for your presentation on our programs, as you say, which have certainly been embraced by our community and enjoyed. So now we are on 7.10. This is our operating budget combined sheet. So I believe I'm going to call on either Francis and or Becky to bring us through to that presentation side. So I believe that's Francis or Becky. Could you walk us through that, please?
Operating budget. Note that as some of the staff members, senior staff members have mentioned, this year we had to make some changes. Going through the new chart of accounts, we have chosen to do the budget the old way, and in the new year we will implement the budget into the new budget software. So it's difficult to break out the facilities and recreation. So you do see some anomalies, especially in the rec admin. Just wanted to highlight that. But once we break it out into the new facilities model, you should see some shifts within the recreation facilities section. So having said all of that, note that it's a 4.7% increase on the levy. As Fran had mentioned, we will be receiving the new assessment roll come December, first week of December. And at that point in time, we will be able to evaluate the new assessments and come up with some modeling for you for what it will actually be as an increase on our tax rate. With the substantial growth, we're hoping to see even better overall increase on the tax rate for 2022. So at this time, I've been documenting some of the minor changes based on Janie and Lyndon's suggestions. And what we will do is if there's any changes from now until we meet in January for the overall operating budget again, they will be listed for you to see. And then we will bring that proposal forward at that time.
Thank you very much, Becky. Any questions from council? Please use our chat function. Pardon me, Pat. Oh, okay. We'll go to CAO Snell, please, for a comment.
Thank you, Chair Rothwell. I just wanted to sort of add on some of Becky's comments when we see the overall picture. As Becky has expressed, as we're changing, there are some anomalies, but I think overall staff have tried to very hard to balance some of the pressures that we know we're having. As Councillor Enstedt said, we all know fuel's increasing. There are lots of inflationary pressures that we're dealing with in the near term anyway, as well as sort of some of the big picture projects that we see happening, both that were discussed at the visiting session, as well as that our staff are certainly trying to move forward with a strategic plan, along with some of the demands of the community, but also trying to balance that with what we know is really a difficult time for some members of our community. So we've tried very hard to make this budget as realistic as possible, and yet accomplish and move some of the projects forward, but as well as trying to maintain a sense of fiscal responsibility as well. So just wanted to add my thanks again. I think the managers have tried very hard to maintain that sense as they put together their budgets. Thank you.
Thank you, CAO Snell. We will move to Councillor Behrens. His question. Go ahead, Councillor Behrens, please.
Thanks, Chair Rothwell. Just looking at the overall combined budget, and I'm just trying to maybe grasp what Becky had said about changing to the new system, and there are a few anomalies. Just looking at the fire, for example, there seems to be, well, percentages are relative, but there seems to be an increase, and I'm trying to nail down where the increase is. For example, if you take the Listowel station and just reading across, we're looking at, 130 $100,000 more. I'm just, is there something in there that we're not aware of, or is it just one of those anomalies that we haven't separated out facilities or along that line? Just, and like the other one, you know, would be the other two stations as well. Is that just the inflationary, or is there something that we're missing? Thanks.
Fire Chief Pape, would you like to answer that, please?
Sure. Those numbers are attributed to the rent costs that have been introduced this year at all three of our stations. And that's to, my understanding is to take on the new facilities model. So that's where those numbers have come from. Does that help?
Thanks very much for that answer. And I think I'm noticing, well, you go ahead, Councillor Behrens. I don't want to steal your words.
Yeah, and I remember Janie saying that, and I forgot all about that part of it. So it's just one of those things where we're kind of changing the system a wee bit with the structure, and some lines don't make sense. So my apologies, Chief Pape.
No apology needed. I'm still getting my head wrapped around this too.
I think this will be a learning process for everyone. And as Chief Pape, as well as Councillor Behrens have pointed out, that's going to be in pretty well every department that we're going to have to be aware of, and each manager has to be aware of as well. But with changes come challenges, and hopefully the opportunity of learning as well. So thanks very much for pointing that out and asking the question, Councillor Behrens, and for the answer, Fire Chief Pape. Any other questions of council on the overall operating budget lines? Again, the 4.7% is overall, and that's operating only. Any other questions? I'm seeing Sarah Jameson. Yes, go ahead, Sarah. Or is that someone else? Go ahead.
It might be my connection, Chair Rothwell. Sorry, I'm not sure why I'm showing up as Sarah. But,
okay, Mayor Todd. Mayor Todd. There we are.
I'll have to be more aware of the fact that the system is logging me in that way. I just had a quick question about whether there is any spend allocated at this point for two of the sort of initiatives that this council has seen and is sort of in the midst of, the first being the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan, and the second being the Climate Change Plan. So I'm curious about whether we've got any operating expenses allocated to that that aren't otherwise covered through grant funding, etc.
I'll turn to, thanks, Mayor Todd. Now that we've got that sorted out, whose computer you're on, we will ask CAO Snell and other staff as necessary. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Chair Rothwell. So yes, certainly I can start with the climate change. So certainly the continuation of the climate change coordinator is included in the 2022 budget. I should have probably mentioned that in my presentation. We are working with the other 6 partners to assess what their involvement will be going forward. At this point, it seems like all the partners have included them in their budget. So that will be going ahead. Obviously, once we have more of an implementation plan, the 7 partners might be back to all respective councils to seek some funding. The only change that was, the recommendation that really involved creation of a project so far has been the Clean Water Project, and we're hoping that would come at the county level, although that I'm not sure that that's included in their budget for sure. And then, yes, we do have some funds away also in the operating budget for the Community Safety Wellbeing Plan going forward for our share of the cost proposed for 2022.
Thanks very much, CAO Snell. I believe that's answered Mayor Todd's questions. Any other questions from council, please? I'm not seeing any coming forward. Pat, are you seeing any? Okay, good. I see none. So I want to thank all of our staff for their presentations. I note that it's just shortly after 8:30, and frankly, I'm shocked that we've made it through all 10 of those presentations. So kudos to you. Now, just know that there's over 200 pages of material there. So I suspect as we roll up our sleeves, there's going to be plenty more questions that do arise. So we're at the early stages here. And again, as was pointed out, we want to thank all of our staff for their work and efforts in the presentations that were put together and presented by the managers. So thanks very much. So item 8 on our agenda is council direction. And I'm not exactly sure. I didn't have a chance to ask our clerk about that. But I believe my understanding is that on our next budget committee, which will be Wednesday, December the 8th, is it? It's either 8th or 6th. I've forgotten. Just hold on.
8th.
8th. There we are. Thanks for the help. I appreciate that. But that's when we are going to be dealing with the capital budget presentations. And then, as was noted by Becky earlier, then come January, we'll be going into things in earnest as we go through. So it's not unusual that there's not a whole lot of conversation and questions in this meeting. So don't feel as though we haven't been doing our homework, but it's a lot to digest here, and it's nice to have the overall or overview of the presentation. So I appreciate that. So I don't believe, Clerk Pat, that we're looking for anything further. All right, Council, if you have any concerns about that, I see there's a comment. Go ahead, Mayor Todd, now that I know you have.
Thank you very much, Councillor Rothwell, and my appreciation and hat tip to all the staff as well. This has been an exceptional exercise that seemed to flow very smoothly as I monitored the approach to this meeting, and so I'm very grateful, and on behalf of all council, express that gratitude as well. I actually took interest in Councillor Andreessen's questions of the manager of facilities with regards to cemetery financing and the user fee model moving more quickly. And I wonder if part of our direction tonight isn't to ask for a report with regards to the timeline for moving towards a cost recovery approach, and sort of get a sense of what that's going to look like, because that certainly seemed of interest to Councillor Andreessen, and it did to me as well. So I'm wondering if council would indulge us giving some staff direction on that matter.
In response, CAO Snell, could you provide comments, and perhaps Jeff Newell as well as necessary, but go ahead, CAO Snell.
And certainly I know the cemetery board, along with Jeff's guidance, has been working on a report to come to council regarding cemetery rates. Now, it was on that 5% that Jeff talked about, which I think we should probably implement anyway. But having said that, I think we can develop a longer term plan to look at, first of all, what would rates look like at full cost recovery? And then kind of business plan backwards from there to see what kind of cost increase we can implement over a period of 2 to 5 years to see if we can get to a cost recovery model. Certainly, I think that's something we can endeavor to do.
Chris, when are we anticipating that report coming from the cemetery board?
I believe it was coming to the next council meeting on December 6th.
On that basis, and if council is in agreement, I don't believe that we need to have a motion to deal with that, but perhaps direction to staff if they could include the comments that Mayor Todd has made, as well as Councillor Andreessen, regarding sort of what the rates would look look like on the full cost recovery? So that if that could be included in the report, as you mentioned, Chris, I think that would address the comments that were made. Is that possible?
I don't know if that gives Jeff enough time to put that all together, but we could certainly try. And even if it's delayed to the December 13th meeting, I don't think it's the end of the world, because the rates weren't due to come into effect until January 1st. So I think we can just maybe include it all in that one report.
Okay, fair enough. I appreciate that comment. I see Councillor Seiler. Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you, Chair Rothwell. I guess my comment, being I'm on the cemetery board, that and Jeff did touch on it, that we have brought the rates, the percentage up over 15% in the last 3 years, almost 20. And when we looked at it, we took a view of all the cemeteries around in this area, and we're trying to keep them all in line with the rest. So this is how the cemetery board has operated, and we just don't want to have overkill and jump them up 25%. So we're just trying to stay level with the people, the municipalities around us. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Seiler. Going back to CAO Snell's comments about the report that will be coming forward, I believe, based on the comments, that the questions in the comment, if council's satisfied, I think we can certainly look forward to seeing that report, whether it's December 6th or the subsequent meeting of council. It's timely in that respect. So if it's fair, I think just looking at Pat, are we satisfied just in terms of that, or do we need to have a council resolution on that? Yeah. Okay. So with that understanding, council, we have discussed this and look forward to the report from the cemetery board. And I appreciate the comments of CAO Snell as well as Councillor Seiler with respect to providing some of that background. So thanks, everyone. Now, if there's nothing further, I see Councillor Andreessen. Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Andreessen.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Chair Rothwell. I am interested in understanding how other municipalities do approach the cemetery fees, and perhaps in that upcoming report that could be included, just some comparisons. However, I feel strongly about the importance of cost recovery. So it's just good information to understand what other municipalities are doing, and I appreciate Councillor Seiler sharing that as his perspective and part of the board. Thank you.
Good. I think we've heard from everyone on that matter, so we do look forward to the report, and perhaps CAO Snell, if we could incorporate perhaps some of those comments or comparisons. I suspect it may very well include that, as mentioned by Councillor Seiler. But CAO Snell, any further comment?
Certainly, just add that Jeff and I can certainly have a conversation tomorrow. I don't know if Jeff has anything to add tonight, but we can work towards addressing all the comments made by council.
Fair enough. Jeff, you're fine with that, I hope. You and Chris will speak in the coming days, and look forward to a report coming through to council in due course.
Yes, that's fine. No problem.
Okay, thank you very much, staff. And we are at item number 9 on our agenda. So that's the confirmatory bylaw. And I have a really good script that Mayor Todd has given me and I should use. Council has mandated good practice acts near the end of its meeting agenda to confirm all of its actions and business of its meeting through what's called a confirmatory bylaw. So I have a draft of a confirmatory bylaw number 129-2021, which reads as follows: as a bylaw to confirm generally previous actions of the Council of the Municipality of North Perth be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time, and be finally passed, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk, or chair and the clerk, and sealed with the seal of the corporation. I'm just looking to see where we are on our scorecard here. I believe Councillor Duncan, you're with us now. Would you be willing to move that, Councillor Duncan?
Yes, I'll move that.
And Councillor Seiler, will you be willing to second that motion?
Yes, I will. Thank you.
Are there any questions about that? Just put them in the chat function. Not seeing any and not expecting any. We'll call for the vote, please. Pat, thank you. I believe, yeah, we've got everyone accounted for, so we'll declare that carried. Thank you. So, Council, we are at the towards the very end of our agenda. So we have completed deliberation and taken actions on the business that's come before us tonight. I have a motion to adjourn, which reads as follows, which is, oh, Miratod, you do a great job at this. Here we are. That the council meeting adjourns at 8:49 p.m. to meet again for general council business on Monday, December 6th, 2021. May I please call on Councillor Andreessen to move that?
Yes, I'll make that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Anstead, would you second that motion, please?
Yes, I would second that motion. Thank you.
If any other comments, you can make those known, but I will call for the vote, please. And I believe that everyone's accounted for. I think, Pat, are we? 7, I think it's. Councillor Behrens.
I'm in favor.
Councillor Behrens is in favor. Thanks very much, Councillor Behrens. With that noted, I declare that motion carried. We will stand adjourned then till our next meeting of council, which is Monday, December 6th. And as noted, we do have a budget committee meeting scheduled then for Wednesday, December 8th. Mark that on your calendar. That'll be the capital budget presentation. So thank you one and all, and I bid you all a good evening.